22 cents, even though we have 47 million people without health insurance. Interest on the debt, 20 cents out of every tax dollar goes to interest on the debt. Anti-poverty program is about 9 cents. You may not be able to read these, so I'll read them off to you. Education and training, 4 cents. Government law enforcement, 4 cents. Veterans benefits, which is, I showed it up there, but I also calculated there as 4 cents. Housing and community development, 3 cents. I can't even read this myself. Energy and the environment is 3 cents. Transportation, 2 cents. International relations, 1 cent. So that's where your income tax dollar is going. And I want to mention, since you brought that up, just to say a little bit about national security, because one of the things that we've tried to talk about is the need to see if there's some way we can deal with a military budget that is going so high. We, as Janet said, spend almost as much as the rest of the world combined. And if you took a look at our NATO allies, they would spend another 23 cents out of that. It's a very high amount of money, and it certainly raised a lot of questions among the public, many people think that we're beginning to police the world. And so one of the encouraging things that's happening is that a number of national security experts are beginning to say, well, maybe there are other ways to address security rather than just through weaponry of war. There must be other tools in the toolbox besides the military to be able to address issues. For instance, preventive measures. We spend 90% of our national security on weaponry and war, only 4% on preventive measures, only 6% on homeland security. An example of a preventive measure of the almost $700 billion national security budget, we spend about $1 billion buying up nuclear weapons and trying to get rid of the nuclear weapons in the former Soviet Union. One would think that we could spend more money instead of waiting for decades to have gotten rid of all those weapons. We might be able to do that more assertively. Energy. Many people think that energy plays a large role in our military policy. We spend about $2 billion out of that $700 billion on alternative energy. Maybe we should be investing more in alternative energy. We spend about $20 billion out of the $700 billion budget on development aid and other kinds of issues that deal with international security. Like we were saying, maybe we need to be thinking. So that's one of the things that, interestingly, a number of national security experts are beginning to take a look at. Well, let me go back to that amount of money that we were talking about, that Iraq war, and talk about that and just how much money that is. This represents how much we've spent on the Iraq war in the United States over the last 6 years. And it's over $600 billion, but let me just show you what we could have bought instead. In the first, remember I said that a third of our schools need to be substantially rebuilt or repaired. In the first 2 years of what we spent on the war, we could have rebuilt every school that needs to be rebuilt in this country. In the second 2 years of this war, we could have rebuilt each one of the 107 or the 700, I'm getting my numbers, of the tens of thousands of bridges that we built in this country. In the second 2 years of the war. Each year after that, we've been averaging about $130 to $135 billion for this war. That's about what it would cost per year to provide health insurance for everybody in this country that doesn't have health insurance. So that's how expensive just the war effort is. Remember, that's a small part of our military budget. Pardon me?
Are these just actual numbers, or do they include the debt interest also?
These are actual numbers. They don't include the debt. I'll get to the debt in a minute. One of the things that's happened is that as we increase money, especially on the war, and you can read the press statements from the presidents and the president's press aides, etc. As soon as the budget comes out, they say we need to cut back on social spending because we have a war. And it comes out every year. One of the programs that gets cut is community development block grants, and for some reason these numbers haven't come up well on this PowerPoint presentation. But you can see what's happening in Annapolis. You started out at $485,000 in 2003. You're now down to $339,000. There's been a loss of about cumulatively, a loss of about $250,000 over the past 6 years in community development block grants. There have been other programs. I think people might be speaking to other programs, but certainly programs like job training and other housing programs and nutrition, perhaps the nutrition programs that have also been cut as we've had to deal with the war. This chart tries to show the loss in community development block grants alongside the amount of money that this city has spent every year on the war. So you've gone from $7 million to $10 million up to what's currently $18 million that this city is spending this year on this money. Pardon me?
How are we spending that money?
How is the Pentagon spending?
How are we spending? Where are we coming out of that?
This is coming out through individual taxes. When people pay their individual tax dollars, they pay their income taxes by April 15th. That share of the money. So it's coming from individual taxes. So that gives you some sense. Cumulatively, it's about $69 million. And so I've tried to add up different ways of taking a look at the cost here in Annapolis. Total cost since 2003, as you can see, $69.5 million per household, about $4,500. Cost per person, about $1,900. The cost of the city this year, as I said, $18 million. That's $1.5 million a month, or $352,000 a week, $50,000 a day, about $2,000 since we started this talk. So, just to give you some sense of what this is costing. Yes.
So, go back to that other bar graph where we had 5 cents on the dollar. Or, you basically say that 5 cents could resolve construction costs, bridges, all schools, and healthcare for everyone who does not have a
I'm saying that 5 cents represents this year's spending.
Right.
So that would represent $130-some billion, which would deal with healthcare.
Okay.
Would deal with healthcare. That was one year's spending. Right. Yep. That also means that if you remember that bar chart and how much was going to other parts of the military, that this city spends about $70 to $80 million a year on national defense, which is a lot of money. I think that's close to what the city budget